Welcome to my Bake Escape. This week I'm excited to share with you my ultimate walnut chocolate chip cookie recipe. These are made with brown butter. I use semi-sweet chocolate chips along with milk chocolate chips and toasted chopped walnuts. I top these cookies with flaked sea salt and they are absolutely delicious. For the full recipe, visit mybakeescape.com. Be sure to follow me on Pinterest and Instagram at mybakeescape. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, make sure to do so. I appreciate the support. All right, so for this recipe, as I mentioned, you will need to use some brown butter, and I am using 2 sticks plus 2 tablespoons of unsalted butter. What's great about the butter packaging that I have is it lets you know where the measurements are for the tablespoons. So what I do is while the butter is still wrapped up, I use a knife to indent where the 2 tablespoon mark is, open it up, cut off what I need, and place the 2 sticks plus the 2 tablespoons of butter in a pan, and I'm gonna let this cook on a medium simmer. You want to keep an eye on it, especially when it starts to get to the point where it's bubbling up. Just want to continue to stir it, and you're going to go ahead and cook this until you begin to see small bits of brown toastiness. And once you start to smell like a nutty caramel scent, that means it is ready. So you're going to go ahead and remove it from the heat and transfer it to a heat safe bowl. I like to use a stainless steel bowl for this. And because I want to make these cookies right away and this needs to cool down, I am going to speed up the process by placing this entire bowl into a smaller bowl that I have with ice cubes and a little bit of water. And what this is going to do is help cool down that butter a lot faster. So I place the bowl on top of the ice and water and stir the butter a little bit and let it sit for about 10 minutes. After 10 minutes, you'll see that it has solidified, and when you move it around a little bit, all those brown bits are at the bottom, and that is where all the flavor is. So now that the brown butter has cooled, I'm ready to move on with making the cookie dough. To make the cookie dough, you will need brown butter, all-purpose flour, brown sugar, granulated sugar, semi-sweet and milk chocolate chips, toasted walnuts chopped, 2 eggs, baking soda, salt, and vanilla extract. I start by combining the dry ingredients. So to the flour, I add in the baking soda, followed by the salt. Combine those ingredients together. I like to use a whisk for this. Next, I combine the wet ingredients starting with the brown butter. So I add the brown butter to a large bowl. And then I add both sugars to the butter. And I cream these together for about 3 minutes until the sugars and the butter are combined and light and fluffy. Next, I add the 2 eggs. These eggs are at room temperature, and I like to crack them into a separate bowl before adding them to the batter. This just helps in case a shell gets in. It's a lot easier to remove it if it's in its own separate bowl. So add the eggs to the sugar and butter mixture and mix those in. Next, add the vanilla extract. Next, I start incorporating the flour mixture. So I do this in 2 batches. So I go ahead and add about half of the flour mixture. Mix that in just until the flour has been absorbed into the butter sugar mixture. And then I add the rest of it. Again, mixing just until all of the flour has been absorbed. The next step is to add the chocolate chips. As I mentioned earlier, I am using semi-sweet as well as milk chocolate chips. You can use whichever you prefer. And what I like to do is take about a handful of the chocolate chips and chop them up into smaller pieces. This allows chocolate to spread throughout the dough, so every bite has a little bit of chocolate. You can use a bar of dark chocolate or any type of chocolate that you like and chop that up to add that chunk type of texture throughout the cookie as well. Now I'm ready to add the chocolate chips as well as those pieces that I chopped up to the dough, along with the toasted chopped walnuts. I chop these pretty fine. That is also up to you. You can chop them into bigger pieces if you like. And using a large spatula, I mix these in by hand. This will take a little bit of time. I want to make sure that all of the walnuts, the chopped walnuts and chocolate chips and pieces are mixed into the dough really well. And this is what the dough looks like. You can see lots of chocolate throughout, as well as those tiny bits of chopped walnut. I'm using a baking sheet. This is a jelly roll pan, and I lined it with parchment paper, and I'm also using an ice cream scoop. This is kind of a smaller ice cream scoop. I want to make smaller sized cookies, but you can pick whatever size you like. I like to use an ice cream scoop because it ensures that the cookies are all roughly the same size and that they'll bake evenly in the oven. I also like to press down slightly on top of each of the cookies. This just helps them spread out a little bit and cook evenly throughout. So these bake in a 375-degree oven for about 11 minutes. This is what they look like. I remove them from the oven and let them sit on the pan on a cooling rack for about 5 minutes. While they're still warm, this is where I like to add the sea salt. So I have this large flake sea salt that I like to use to finish my desserts with. And you see how large the flakes are. The salt is just going to add a little bit more flavor and give it that nice little salty bite to offset the sweetness from the chocolate. And this just makes them so special. It just takes them to another level. So you have the brown butter flavor, the delicious chocolate chips, milk and semi-sweet, toasted walnuts, and a little bit of that sea salt to top it off. These turn out so good every time. The cookie is perfectly baked. It's nice and light brown on the bottom. The edges are a little crisp and buttery, but the center is tender and chocolatey. These are delicious. That little bit of salt that you get on the top really balances out the sweetness in the cookie. You're going to want to make these really soon. They make great gifts. Valentine's Day is coming up soon. You could package these up and give them away. They are delicious, and I know you're going to like them. For the full recipe, visit mybakeescape.com. Thank you so much for watching, and have a sweet day.